Anatomy is one of the many fundamentals to understanding medicine, as it allows people to understand what systems are inside of the body and their functions. Anatomy has not always been as comprehended as it is currently. Many scientists, doctors, and even artists all across the world have contributed to the development of anatomy. The vast history of anatomy will be divided into three parts: ancient anatomy, early anatomy, and modern anatomy. Ancient anatomy will focus on anatomy before Christ, and we will look at India, Greece, and Egypt. Starting with ancient anatomy, let's take a look in India around 600 to 1000 BC, during which Sushruta was deemed as the father of Indian surgery, as he was inventing and developing surgical procedures. He wrote the Sushruta Samhita, also known as Sushruta's Compendium. The work of Sushruta standardized and established specific procedures, including performing plastic surgery reconstructions and the removal of cataracts. His execution of ancient surgery illustrates his profound understanding of the body and its anatomy. In Greece, Aristotle, who lived between 384 and 322 BC, studied many animals, which were the basis of many of his publications, as he wrote detailed descriptions about all he observed. Many regard Aristotle as the founder of comparative anatomy because his overall approach is comparative and incorporates a wealth of anatomical and morphological description. His descriptions are confirmed by drawings made by other scientists and observers of the future. Aristotle believed that the heart is the main organ and thought it to be the center of intelligence, motion, and sensation. He is the one who came up with the term anatomy to refer to the structures of the body. Finally, we get to the man who is often credited as the father of anatomy, Herophilus, who lived between 335 and 280 BC in Egypt. Herophilus was a physician in Alexandria during the small period of time that the ban on human dissection was lifted, allowing him to study human cadavers. He conducted important anatomical investigations of the brain, eye, nervous and vascular systems, and the genital organs. He was also known as the first to measure the pulse, with the concept of doing so derived from Hippocrates' theories of four humors. It is believed that Herophilus wrote 9 pieces of work, ranging from commentary on previous works of other physicians to his own anatomical treatise, but all of his works were destroyed in the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Early anatomy will cover AD until the 20th century, and we will look at Egypt, Greece, and Europe. Moving on to early anatomy in Greece, Galen's curiosity was significantly growing as he became a physician for gladiators. From wounds, he could tell that there were many systems in the body, and he sought to discover these systems and their functions. Galen was the first to find a theory and depiction of the way that blood flows through the body. He challenged cardiocentric views, which were supported by ancient Egyptians and Greeks, such as Aristotle. Instead, he argued that the brain was the center of intelligence, motion, and sensation. Galen resided in Rome, where human dissection was prohibited and seen as unholy. Therefore, Galen had to resort to dissecting animals, which created a large contrast in the studies done by Galen and actual human anatomy. However, due to the banned dissection throughout the 13th and 14th centuries, his theories went unchallenged for many years. In the 15th century, artist Leonardo da Vinci, in efforts to improve his proportions for his art of humans, wanted a closer look at the intricacy of the human body. During this time, only physicians were permitted to dissect, so Da Vinci had to get cadavers through grave robbers in order to practice his dissections. He identified muscles, bones, and their functions in the body. However, he could not share any of his findings due to the illegal procedure he took to get to that conclusion. These findings of 240 drawings and 13,000 words worth of theories remained concealed until many years after Da Vinci's death. In the 16th century, Vesalius began the path to modern anatomy as he dissected cadavers of criminals to teach the students at his university. As a firm believer in Galen's work, he soon realized that what he saw in front of him did not match Galen's sketches and descriptions. He soon realized that Galen had never dissected a human. One of his biggest discoveries that disproved Galen was that the breastbone consists of 3 segments, not 7 as Galen had previously stated. In 1543, Vesalius published his book, De Humani Corpus Fabrici Libri Septem, or the 7 books on the structure of the human body, commonly known as the Fabrica. Around the same time, the Egyptians made great contributions in the first anatomical drawings. The first preserved illustrations of anatomy are from the Persian treatise, which is often called Mansur's Anatomy after its author. The treatise consists of an introduction followed by 5 chapters on the 5 systems of the body: bones, nerves, muscles, veins, and arteries, each illustrated with a full-page diagram. Mansur had also illustrated a pregnant woman's anatomy, as he was interested in Galenic embryological theories and their interaction with the tradition of prophetic medicine. In the 17th century in Europe, William Harvey discovered that blood flow occurred in a single system and blood continuously flows through the system very quickly. Before Harvey, there was believed to be 2 separate systems, which separated veins and arteries, but both worked together to circulate both deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood. He also studied the ventricles of the heart and how efficiently they pumped blood. The 18th and 19th century had an exponential increase in anatomical finds, mainly due to the Anatomy Act of 1832, which was established to stop grave robbing. Anatomists were allowed to teach medical students with donated bodies, and soon dissections became mandatory for medical students. In the 1850s, Henry Gray became an anatomy demonstrator and then was promoted to anatomy lecturer at St. George's Hospital in London. In 1858, Gray wrote the work he is most known for, Anatomy, Descriptive and Surgical, which is an influential and comprehension book with clear explanations on anatomy. Modern anatomy focuses on the 21st century. Many ancient and early concepts have contributed to medical practices today, from Da Vinci's detailed anatomical drawings to surgical techniques. Henry Gray's book, Anatomy, has been modernized, and colored copies are now available with new advancements of current times. These include MRI, X-ray, and PET scans, which would have been unimaginable in Gray's time. Anatomy has developed into an essential aspect of medicine, built upon foundations of techniques and practices from the past. With new technology and advancing developments, anatomy may progress on a micro level. The current practices of today may become the foundations of a new practice in the future.